This video is brought to you by friend of the channel Squarespace. Stick around to learn more about them, as well as a special offer they're making available through my channel.
From Software birthed the Souls-like subgenre back in 2009 with Demon Souls. They've since released bangers like Sekiro and Bloodborne, which spun the formula in their own ways while maintaining that FromSoft DNA. They are both the authors and leaders of this subgenre, and while more great Souls-likes from other studios have come and gone, From Software have always felt unparalleled in their expertise. Along comes an unknown Korean studio called Round 8 Studio, developing a new Souls-like called Lies of P. What have they made before? Well, let's see. Bless Unleashed, a middling reboot to one of the most poorly received MMORPGs of all time, Bless Online. That is it. That is their entire portfolio. But then they come out with Lies of P, and holy moly, what a game. This is such a fascinating title, because despite this studio having zero experience with this genre, it so perfectly adapts and evolves the Souls-like formula in a way I have never seen before. I mean, if someone said to me that this was a FromSoft title, I would absolutely believe them. Lies of P is this really cool balance between the aggressive combat style of Bloodborne and the parry-focused dance of Sekiro that rewards your attentiveness and timing. The difficulty isn't crushing, at least for the first half of the game, but it's still full of thrilling, heart-pounding encounters that'll leave you breathless. Its rich world building and stunning visuals will transport you to an unforgiving world, but with sweet, well-paced moments of levity to reflect on what this lone hero is fighting for. Round 8 have found ways to provide their own spin on the genre as well. There's a weapon system that allows you to freely mix and match various blades and hilts to assemble your own creations. There's an added layer of customization through multiple skill trees and a great number of quality of life additions, alongside a charming story about the human condition with characters and themes directly inspired by the tale of Pinocchio. It's an amalgamation of ideas that come together to form an astonishingly good video game. I mean, the fact that this studio managed to pull this off is quite frankly extraordinary. Round 8 get it. They deeply understand the core tenets that define this genre and build on those foundations to produce something that stands on its own 2 feet. If you're a fan of Souls-likes or even have a passing interest, Lies of P is an experience you do not want to miss.
Geppetto's puppet. We need your help.
The story begins in a broken down train carriage where an inanimate puppet is sparked to life by the one and only Blue Fairy. You awake as Pinocchio of course, with no memories nor knowledge of this world. He's seemingly half human, proven by his ability to lie, a concept that goes against the programming of other puppets, but he can also wield the powers of Ergo, the cosmic energy that fuels them. You'll be greeted by the voice of Gemini, an artificial cricket that lives within your lamp, who acts as a sort of tour guide as you make your way through Krat, a melancholic husk of a city whose human inhabitants have been pushed to near extinction by a calamity known as the Puppet Frenzy. Along the way, you'll meet several other charming characters, including, of course, your father and inventor of the puppets, Geppetto, with everyone rallying here under the shelter of Hotel Krat, your base of operations. This is a familiar but touching tale of survivors in a post-apocalyptic world clinging to their humanity in order to save themselves from the brink of total collapse. But as the Pinocchio tale goes, it's also a story about love, about greed, about what it means to be human. You'll no doubt recognize multiple characters, locations, and themes inspired by the original story, but it's also influenced every facet of the game. There's a real commitment to the bit, like from the loading screen that says "now lying" with the bar being Pinocchio's growing nose, to dialogue options allowing you to lie or tell the truth for unforeseen consequences, to almost every interaction being a teachable moment for Pinocchio on the human condition. Or perhaps it's Pinocchio doing the teaching. Overall, the writing and world building here is excellent. You'll become truly immersed in this world and made to feel as if you really are the only sliver of light that remains for this bleak and broken place. While it lacks that sort of mystery and obscurity you might be used to in From Software's games, I found the story here much easier to follow as the game provides all the context you need through character interactions. And you can always revisit these characters to ask about the topics you need a refresher on. There's also some great quality of life additions, like locations showing an icon next to them if there's a key item you've missed, or the Hotel Krat fast travel point showing portraits of characters with new dialogue. There's still plenty of secrets to discover throughout your journey, but you're unlikely to miss any of the crucial details, and in that way, I found myself more fully invested in this world and its wonderful characters.
Geppetto and I care about you very much, you know. Stay safe. For both of us.
A highlight for me, though, is just the atmosphere of this game. Psychotic animatronics run rampant in the city streets. Masked scavengers now claim ownership over the towns they've liberated, and the outskirts of the city are overrun with mutants and abominations birthed by a mysterious disease. But all this suffering is broken up by glimpses of beauty, particularly in its music. Amongst the ruins of the city, you might faintly hear someone playing in their apartment. You'll find hidden vinyl records that can be played on loop in the hotel to remind Pinocchio of the beauty and romance of days past. Without those moments of reprieve, I think the oppressive atmosphere might have become overbearing, but fortunately Round 8 have nailed that balance here, in the same way that Elden Ring did for me every time it revealed the next stunning vista. It helps that this game is also very easy on the eyes. I mean, I can't count the amount of times I slow walked through hallways just to soak in all the details. The fantastic lighting and material work here in particular gives these environments so much depth. Chandeliers illuminate spectacular marble interiors. Street lamps emit a faint glow amidst the rain as if to guide you. It's kind of wild this game doesn't have ray tracing because there's so many puddles and reflective materials here that'd take full advantage of it, but even so, it's hard to deny how good this game looks. Certainly an impressive offering when it comes to raw graphical fidelity. It's also surprisingly varied in its locations. I was a bit worried initially because the first couple areas were a lot of Victorian-era cobblestone alleys and rooftops, but you'll eventually come across decrepit countryside townships, illustrious castles, and once vibrant shopping districts, now long abandoned. Don't expect any locations to be wildly colourful or lush with life though. It really does keep to that consistent somber tone right the way through. Important to note, this is not an open world game. These are linear levels with a couple extra nooks to explore in each. Didn't notice many alternate paths that loop back onto the main road either. Exploration is not really a focus here, I'd say. I mean, it's worth doing, don't get me wrong. You might nab a couple extra bits of loot or even find a hidden NPC, but for the most part, the game will keep you moving forward through these well-crafted levels with generous checkpoints and shortcuts. To be honest, I didn't mind this at all. In fact, in this current landscape of massive open world games, a more focused experience like this was definitely quite refreshing. In terms of bugs and polish, I have almost no notes. I had 0 bugs throughout my entire playtime. Sometimes though, you might get cornered into a wall by an enemy unable to escape and have trouble fighting back because of the camera, but this happened rarely. The game ran flawlessly on my RTX 3090 Ti, consistently above 60 frames per second at all times at max settings without DLSS on, by the way. I also played this on a laptop with an RTX 3060 and it ran great there too. Again, max settings, 60 FPS at all times, though I'd occasionally get some micro stuttering. Bafflingly, it also runs almost perfectly on the Steam Deck. That's right, at low settings, which still looks amazing by the way, with AMD's upscaling on, I was getting just under 60 FPS at all times. In fact, performance was so good that there were literally bosses I ended the day stuck on, but I thought I'd have another crack at them before bed on the deck, and I managed to clear them. Only annoying thing I noticed is this white flashing in environments that would happen on occasion. Very distracting though for sure, so if you have a low tolerance for this sort of thing, then this probably isn't the play. But if a future patch can iron that out, then I dare say this would be one of the best looking games that you can play on the Steam Deck. Alright, it's time for the meat and potatoes, what all you Souls-like stans are most interested in, the combat. And man, wouldn't you know, that's excellent too. If you've played any FromSoft game, it's going to feel immediately familiar to you. Very similar control scheme. Every weapon has a unique moveset consisting of light attacks, heavy attacks, roll attacks, sprint attacks, and all manner of combinations in between. You've also got a guard, and a core part of the gameplay loop is that when you block an attack, you'll still take some damage, but it can be healed up with follow-up hits to the enemy. Hitting guard right as an enemy lands their attack will perform a perfect guard, causing you to not lose any health and inflicting stagger damage. This is a crucial component of your toolkit, because if you're like me and you try to panic roll out of trouble all the time, you will be punished for it. If you mistime your roll or that enemy's attack has just a little bit more reach than you were expecting, you will get hit and you won't be able to recover that health back in the same way that you can with a block. Like you'd expect, the combat is weighty. Two-handers especially will have you commit to every swing and cost quite a large chunk of your stamina each time, to the point where I felt quite stamina starved most of the time, as you're also using it to guard and roll. But the long wind-ups reward you with huge damage. The flashy VFX and sound design combine to elevate every blow. Once you've dealt enough stagger damage, the enemy will not automatically drop to the ground. You'll need to land a heavy attack to knock them down, opening them up to a fatal attack, which always feels glorious to pull off. You've also got Fable arts. These are kind of like Ashes of War from Elden Ring, but you can't just spam these and chug mana potions. They're only charged up by landing hits or performing perfect guards. All your tools are balanced in such a way that you can't rely on any single one of them as a crutch or to trivialize encounters. They've done an excellent job here, encouraging you to play aggressively, stand your ground, block blow after blow, find every opportunity to get back in there and go ham to heal up. There's enough leeway in the difficulty that you won't need to perfect these encounters to pass them either, in the way that you would in something like Sekiro, but I imagine you'll have a significantly easier time if you do. One of Round 8's spins on the genre is the weapon system. You'll pick up weapons which are made up of a blade and hilt that you can freely mix and match to assemble your own creations. Each blade and hilt has their own fable art attached to them, and like every good Souls-like, there's also unique weapons that drop from bosses that have their own distinct fable arts, but these weapons cannot be disassembled. When you upgrade a weapon, you're actually upgrading the blade, so you can continue to try out new handles without losing your investment. The handle dictates the weapon's moveset and damage scaling, which you can further modify through these cranks to better fit your stats. This system is ripe for experimentation. At one point, I got this two-handed hacksaw weapon. It was really high in damage, but it felt a bit slow, so I stuck it to the end of this saber handle, and then altered that to scale with my main stat, and now it's this really strong one-hander with the handle's fable art boosting my damage temporarily. You can also test all this out in the training area, which is located right next to the weaponsmith. Just awesome convenience. Love this so much. Your weapons also have durability. Don't worry, they won't explode when your durability gets to 0, but they will deal less damage, so during combat you'll need to keep your weapon sharpened through your grindstone, which you can also imbue with different elemental effects. I think some will hate this mechanic given that it breaks the combat flow, but personally Monster Hunter trained me for this, and you know, it looks pretty badass when you do it, so honestly it's just extra style points. Yet another quality of life thing worth shouting out is that when you've consumed your final pulse cell, which is, you know, your healing item, you can recharge it by landing and blocking attacks. This elegant bit of design gives you those cool final stand moments towards the end of a fight, where even if it seems like all hope is lost, you've run out of healing flasks, you'll be able to keep your health topped up as long as you really buckle down. Then there's also the Legion Arm, a prosthetic limb that you can switch out for various abilities like a grapple hook or a flamethrower, or my favorite, a Kratos-style shield that explodes on hit. You've also got a passive skill tree known as the P organ that unlocks things like more pulse cells or being able to double dodge roll. And then finally you've got your amulets to further refine your build. So yeah, there's a lot to learn, heaps of ways to customize your playstyle here, but all these systems and mechanics are introduced to you at a very good pace. It honestly never became overwhelming. If anything, it just helped to keep the game feeling fresh right the way through. There's a staggering number of enemy types across the game as well. Just about every new area will surprise you with some new variety of mutant or puppet, all with entirely new movesets. Fuck these little baby puppets in particular, holy shit. I'd be creeping behind one only for its head to swivel a full 360 and suddenly I'm being swarmed and I would immediately nope the hell out of there. Some of the major enemies are ridiculously tough too, like this creepy clown puppet. Swear to God, this guy was harder than most bosses. And you will need to take advantage of every part of your toolkit, because this game is at times quite challenging, especially toward the tail end, as you might expect. Now, I was having an okay time in my first 20 hours. Basic enemies take just a couple hits to kill, major enemies were kind of a pain, but manageable, and bosses would take anywhere between a few attempts to maybe 10 or so. There's no co-op, but you can summon an AI to help you with bosses. It does cost an item to summon, but usually I had a surplus of those by the time the next boss came around. That was honestly the sweet spot for me, just perfect. That first 20 hours felt very tightly tuned, and even if you're inexperienced with Souls-likes, I think you'd be able to push through without too much issue. Then I hit a boss that humbled me so hard for the next 4 to 5 hours straight. This is where I'll flag that the build craft can feel a little rigid at times, particularly when you hit those difficulty spikes. While you can freely reassemble weapons and change out your Legion arm, you will not unlock the ability to respec anything, including your stats, until about 25 hours in, which is just over halfway through the game. It also becomes increasingly difficult to try out new weapons because your favorites are where all your upgrade materials will pool into, and the material economy does get a little stingy with no reliable way to farm these materials. I don't hate it when a game asks me to commit to my choices. It makes those choices meaningful after all, but in a game like this, it can sometimes feel too punishing, like you've hit rock bottom with few ways to adapt. It could have been that I was underleveled and the bosses were just starting to outpace me. I spoke to a couple other reviewers who were like 10 to 20 levels above me by this point, and they said they didn't have too much issue. So just something to keep in mind as you play, you should commit to a playstyle early on and ensure that you kill every enemy you come across for that juicy ergo. Barring those issues though, the boss encounters are superb. They never felt insurmountable as their mechanics are telegraphed clearly and there's enough downtime in between for you to take a breather. Never did these fights feel unfair. There's like no bullshit one-shot mechanics. My wipes were always a result of me getting too greedy or mistiming my guards. There were typically a couple big hitter moves that you needed to learn the timing of, but once you cracked it, you were home free. That one boss I mentioned drained all of my resources. No way to respec to try a different angle. I could go back and farm ergo, but that's quite slow going. Eventually though, on my last attempt for the day, I spent all my ergo to min-max what I had, and with my final summon, my last consumables, I went all in for one final push. We duked it out, and with my health low, with 0 pulse cells left, I managed to just get enough hits in to build up a charge, heal up, and land the finishing blow. It always comes down to those intense, spectacular showdowns that have your heart beating out of your chest, watching every telegraph with bated breath, but you eventually clear by the skin of your teeth and sit back, shaking from the adrenaline. It's an addicting feeling that only the Souls-like genre can provide, and it's one that Lies of P delivers again and again.
It's been my pleasure, friends, and enjoy the rest of your journey. I've been your captain on this ride, Gemini!
Now, I haven't actually finished this game. I'm once again stuck on a boss that has drained all my resources, but you can bet I'll be pushing through. I've played about 30 hours so far, and from what I've heard, that's about 3/4 of the way through the game. So you're looking at about a 40-hour campaign. This is a full-priced game, but absolutely justifies that price tag. Better yet though, this thing is also available on Game Pass day one, so you basically have no excuse not to give it a look in if the game's caught your eye. Man, honestly, I'm just itching to get back into it to see where the story leads and what else Lies of P has in store for me. I'm invested in this world and its characters. There's so many levers for me to pull when it comes to buildcraft, and the combat has this great rhythm to it that really clicked for me, even as someone not super experienced with Souls-likes. Again, it just blew me away that this studio could come out of nowhere and deliver a game on this level of quality, standing toe-to-toe against a AAA studio who's been making this kind of game for over a decade. Maybe Elden Ring was your gateway drug and you want to scratch that itch but feel like your expectations are too high now. Or are you just someone looking for the next big Souls-like to sink your teeth into, since FromSoft got busy with Armored Core? For all the above, I can confidently say that Lies of P is the remedy for what ails you. And not in the we have Bloodborne at home way either. Like, while the inspirations are clear, this is a masterful adaptation of From Software's formula and an uncompromised experience. It looks great, runs well, plays well, no strings attached. Sorry, I had to put that pun in somewhere. Anyway, Round 8 Studio is definitely going on my watch list because I cannot wait to see what they produce next. Not much else to say really. Lies of P is just a damn good video game and well worth your time. I strongly recommend it.
It's never too late to switch things up. Look at me. A few years ago, I was chained to a desk doing corporate things. No disrespect to anyone who loves that, but it certainly wasn't making me happy. I've told this story in the past, but when I wanted to break into the games business, no one would hire me, so I decided to make my own website that focused on video game guides. Thing was, I had no idea how to build a website, so I spent a few $1,000s paying someone to build it, and the website was terrible. It wasn't the web designer's fault, it was entirely on me. My idea was very bad. The point of this story was that back then you had to pay someone thousands of dollars to build a website for your business idea, because that was pretty much the only way to get a website made. Not so today, because thankfully we now have Squarespace. Squarespace is the place to build almost any website you'll need. Want to sell handmade candles? You can build a website for that. Want to profile your art portfolio? You can build a website for that. Want to start writing gaming reviews and commentary to shoulder barge your way into the industry? You can build a website for that. Squarespace's intuitive tools allow you to build a professional-looking website in minutes, and their rich suite of advanced features allows you to promote and monetize your work so that you can earn a living from it. So if you're looking for a sea change, you're in luck, because not only is Squarespace free to get started with, but if you use offer code SKILLUP, you'll get 10% off your purchase of a domain name. Click the link below to get started. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.